Well, the UK might be facing permanent higher tax rises, according to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, but the UK economy has unexpectedly grown, according to the latest official figures, with Chancellor Jeremy Hunt saying data once again is proving the doubters wrong. Well, according to the IFS forecast, taxes will amount for about 37% of national income by the next general election. And ahead of the Conservative Party conference this weekend, the forecast has again reignited calls within the Conservative Party. I also think generally, to be honest with you, amongst the wider public, surely about the amount of tax that we are all paying and about the potential for tax cuts. I know as well from people who talk to me regularly when I'm out and about that they are concerned about not just the amount of tax that they're paying, but what they're actually paying for. Increases in tax and, at least perceived anyway, not a particularly good increase in the quality of public services. So I think there's that seething, simmering resentment there, perhaps. But maybe we would see some kind of change if the economy keeps performing. I'm pleased to say now, joining me is Carl Emmerson, who's Deputy Director of the Institute of Fiscal Studies, the authors of this report. Carl, thank you very, very much for joining us. Great to have you on the show. So talk tax to me. Come on, what's going to happen then? Are we all going to be paying higher tax forever and a day?
It does feel that way. We reckon that by the time of the next election, 37% of our economy will be taken in tax. That's up from 33% at the start of this Parliament. So that increase is equivalent to about £100 billion a year. We've compared it to previous parliaments, and it looks to us like it's going to be the biggest tax-raising parliament that we've seen since the Second World War, the second biggest being New Labour's first term between 1997 and 2001. And I think it's important to remember that, maybe some of these tax rises are because of difficulties from the pandemic, but we suspect a lot of it is not about that. It's really about a desire, an increase in public spending that's happening on an enduring basis. And given that there's not much scope for more borrowing, if we're going to continue to spend, we will need to continue to tax like this.
Yeah, indeed. Is there a justification for this, though? I mean, I mentioned earlier on there that I think a lot of the members of the public don't necessarily inherently resent paying tax, but I think they resent not necessarily getting a lot of bang for their buck. I mean, is there a case to say that our tax money at the moment is not being...
The sound cut out there. I think you were asking what the justification was for the tax rises. And I think what essentially the justification is, well, the government wants to spend more on things like the NHS. It's finding that it's having to spend more on debt interest. We're spending a lot more money on servicing the national debt because we've accumulated a lot of debt and we're paying a higher interest rate on that debt. So there's a lot of spending that's going out that isn't to people's benefit in this country. Debt interest is something we'd rather not have to spend money on. And then there's lots of other areas of government which were actually cut quite a lot during the 2010s, and there doesn't seem to be an appetite there to cut them any further. So when you put that together, it points to more public spending, and there's only so much the government should be borrowing, which therefore points to the need to raise more in revenue.
Yeah, indeed. It puts the Conservative Party in an incredibly tricky position, to be honest with you as well. Look, Carl, thank you very, very much. Great to have you on the show. Carl Emmerson there, Deputy Director, Institute of Fiscal Studies, who authored that report talking about, well, essentially, never-ending tax rises, permanent tax rises in Britain.